Hi, good afternoon. We thank you for your patience. We had a little bit of audio difficulty, but we're good to go. I'm Mary Ellen McGonigal, and I'm here with Mike Lowrey. We're the co-founders of Market Trends Financial LLC, and we're delighted that you could join us today. We look forward to helping you become a bit more knowledgeable about how to find stocks that are poised to really outperform the markets. So we're going to share with you some of the key ingredients in stocks that outperform the markets so that you can have a guide to work from, and more importantly, to give you some confidence so that when you see these potentially big winning stocks, you can pull the trigger and buy them. So let's start. We're going to give you a little bit of background about who we are. Then we will go ahead and review what we're going to be covering today. And we ask that you please refrain from asking any questions until the end of the presentation. We expect to have an ample amount of time. At the end, there's a picture of Mike and I here. So first, I'll start by telling you, again, I'm Mary Ellen McGonigal. I grew up years ago in Philadelphia. During my younger years, I didn't know a lot about Wall Street or stocks for that matter, but I did have a love of finance and numbers. And right out of college, I moved to New York City, and I had the great fortune to meet someone who helped me get a position at Goldman Sachs on their trading floor. I was a low man on the totem pole in their fixed income trading floor, but it was really quite magical. It was just high energy, lots of noise, lots of big money being moved around. So I really fell in love with Wall Street. And I stayed there for a bit, but I decided to move over to the buy side, and I wound up joining a large insurance firm, again on the fixed income side, as an assistant portfolio manager. And within a few years, I did go on to become a portfolio manager. And I was running over $2 billion in assets there. And what I found during that time, the institution I was with was very highly regarded. I was running a lot of money. So I did have access. I tended to get access to information before it reached, certainly before it reached the individual investor. And I found that to be a great advantage. But I will say more recently, certainly over the last 10 years, the SEC has stepped in, and they have discontinued that. They no longer allow that type of activity. So now there's been a real leveling of the playing field so that you as an individual investor can have access to the same information as institutions. And that's really quite exciting. Again, it levels the playing field. It allows you to get in front of these stocks that are poised to outperform. So after 8 years as a money manager, I then moved to Los Angeles with my, at that time, my new husband. That's where I really got into stocks. I joined forces with William O'Neill. And while at O'Neill, I was able to work with some of the top fund managers in the country and teach them what we were seeing in the markets. More recently, I joined forces with Mike at Market Trends Research, where we continued our work with top fund managers throughout the world. And currently, we're going to be launching an individual newsletter for investors, and we really look forward to sharing all of our insights. So here's Mark.
Well, thanks, Mary Ellen. I'm Mike Lowrey, and I'm co-founder of Market Trends Research. But many years ago, when I was 8 years old, back in the 60s, my first stock that I ever bought was American Hospital Supply. Now, why did I want to buy a stock at 8 years old? Well, I saw my father make so much money with Syntex and IBM back in the 80s. It really was interesting to me as an 8-year-old. And so he saw I had a passion, so he said, hey, Mike, if you want to, I'll allocate part of my portfolio. You tell me what to buy, what to sell. So my first stock was American Hospital Supply, which I made money in 6 months. Then I bought a company, a stock called Ampex. I don't know if you remember anybody goes back that far. Ampex made tape for the reel-to-reel tape recorders. Syntex came up with the birth control pill. So those stocks did quite well. Syntex did extremely well. American Hospital Supply was okay. But I saw those stocks, and I thought I was a genius. So then I see my neighbor, and he says, wow, I just know this new company. It's on the over-the-counter. At the time, they called it over-the-counter. It's called Disposable Research. Well, I said, this is it. I'm taking all my money, and I'm doubling down and buying Disposable Research. Well, what happened? I lost all my money. Well, that's a very valuable lesson about having respect for the stock market. Didn't cost me that much money. Well, actually, it cost my father money. But, you know, at 9 years old, that's a valuable lesson. Stocks are very risky. People think they're not. They are very, very risky. So you must always have respect for the stock market. So going into college, I went to USC, that's University of Southern California, majored in business. And I actually went there because I wanted to understand what the Wall Street Journal was talking about. I didn't know what GNP or GEP or how the Federal Reserve operated. So I got out there learning it. Then after that, we hit a recession, and I got a job as an accountant at a food company. And in 6 months, the CEO saw I had a passion for stocks, and he allowed me to manage his corporate pension plan. He didn't think that his investment advisor at Merrill Lynch was doing the job. And we did quite well. So after 12 years of that, I decided to expand on my career. For sure, I wanted to go into Wall Street. So that's when I joined William O'Neill and Company. And man, that was an experience. We gained so much knowledge over there in how the stock market actually worked. And we went back to study historical precedents, and he was one of the pioneers. He's an amazing pioneer. And also, in doing what Mary Ellen did, I consulted with many of the top portfolio managers in the world, and I learned from them. And then 5 years ago, after I left William O'Neill, I decided to cut the herd and start my own company. And we started in a recession. That's the best time to start a company, by the way. It's in a recession. Nobody believes in you, and maybe just can't go down any lower. I don't know, but that's the perfect time. So we did quite well. And recently, like Mary Ellen says, we started this new firm called Market Trends Financial LLC, which caters to the needs of the individual investor. We're getting the same sort of research, same sort of education, where we get the institutions to the individual. And we're really excited about going forward. So here's Mary Ellen.
Hi. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping here before we get started. We do need to review this disclaimer. The content of this presentation is produced by Market Trends Financial LLC and is for educational purposes only. All ideas, opinions, and or forecasts are for the informational purposes only and should not be construed as a recommendation to invest, trade, or speculate in the stock market. Any investments made in light of these ideas and opinions and or forecasts expressed or implied herein are committed at your own risk. Market Trends Financial LLC is not an investment advisor. This is a presentation for educational purposes only and not a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Market Trends Financial LLC and its publishers are not liable for any investment decisions made by viewers or subscribers. Past performance is not indicative of future results. So now we can go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, I'll review here what we will be covering today. I talked about, Mike and I, we both worked with a lot of professionals, and also we did spend a lot of our own time, many, many hours studying winning stocks. We wanted to find what was common among those stocks. So the first thing we're going to be covering and reviewing are the 6 traits that we found common in these winning stocks. We'll also go over which ones you really need to pay attention to within those 6, some of the more important ones. And then review how can you uncover a winning stock. We're also going to provide you with some examples of these winning stocks, point out these 6 common characteristics. And we're going to use history as a guide. And then lastly, we're going to give you a special offer at the end of the presentation. So we hope you'll stay with us as we review everything.
Well, let's start at the beginning. What is a winning stock? Well, I'm sure everybody's owned one maybe at one point in time or another. And you'll know it when you're in one. Winning stock is we studied history that dates back to the turn of the century. And what we did in our work, well, like many other firms, by the way, but we really hone in on just what were the characteristics of all these winning stocks. So we needed to define what a winning stock was. We think a winning stock is a stock that's gone up at least 100% within a 12-month period. And in studying these stocks over history, over cycles, dating back to the turn of the century, we've actually seen stocks rise 1,200%. Institutional quality stocks, 1,200% in a year to 2-year period. And these are the stocks we're interested in. And we found some key characteristics that were inherent in all these stocks, or in many of these stocks. So how do I know if I'm too late or too early? Well, we do a lot of technical analysis. You have to know how to read a chart. You have to see if it's a proper chart, a proper base. You have to know if a stock's under accumulation or if it's being sold. These are all very, very important factors. If you don't get the chart reading right, you can really be destroyed, as I was with that stock when I was 9 years old, because I wasn't reading charts. Are these stocks risky? Well, growth stocks tend to be risky. They're more risky than value stocks. But they're really risky if you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a sell strategy. You must have a sell strategy. It's a risk, managing your risk. And also, reading a chart pattern will reduce your risk. Also, being in uptrends versus downtrends, as Mary Ellen was saying, you know, most stocks go up in bull markets, down in bear markets. You have to know market direction. So anyways, here's Mary Ellen.
So we said we would reveal the 6 key characteristics that we found common among these winning stocks. And so this first one has been, again and again, we've found that you do need to have very strong fundamentals, and in particular, you need to see explosive earnings and sales. These 2 characteristics are a real driver of a stock's move. When you have sound earnings and sales, they're strong, both current and going forward. That's definitely one of the very key ingredients among all of these winning stocks. The next is innovation. You want to be involved with a company that is at the forefront of innovation. Again, many cycles we've come back. The 1980s with PCs, the advent of those. Those companies that were the most innovative performed the best. The U.S. has gone through many different periods and cycles of innovation, and each time there have been really big winners. And so we know through our work that's one of the key ingredients. Institutional interest is strong. These institutions, they run a lot of money. So in that, you want to pay attention to volume characteristics and whether the stock is being accumulated. This is a key characteristic, and of course, naturally it will be a driver as far as the stock's continued uptrend. When you do put it together with the earnings and sales and the innovation. And 5th, company is a leader in its field. Oftentimes you'll have cycles where a particular industry group gets very interesting, it becomes hot, but as such most stocks will rise. But you want to be in the leader. The leading stock will go up on average 2 times the others within that given group. So that's a key component. And then lastly, it's the broader market and the backdrop. As far as putting money to work, of course, the uptrend is your friend. And so you want to pay attention to that broader market. And we'll go into that a little bit more as far as working within that and identifying it. So here are some examples we've mentioned to you. We're going to show you these different characteristics using history as your guide.
Well, thanks, Mary Ellen. Well, the first chart is actually a stock that we identified to our clients. And I'll show you just all the characteristics Mary Ellen was talking about. This one is Ligand Pharmaceuticals. Now, we identified it for our clients at this point here when it broke out of this accumulation phase we call a base. And you can see it already had a substantial move. This is what's called a prior uptrend. But you're seeing one of the traits that Marilyn was talking about, the accumulation phase or positive chart pattern. You see that it's showing profit for the first time. So you don't necessarily have to see current earnings. We would like to see current earnings. A lot of these stocks are in turnaround situations. However, the revenue growth for Q1 was up 107%, and the earnings estimate going forward to 2014 was 89% increase. So in order to sustain future moves, you have to have superior growth. This is what sustains stock prices on huge rallies. There's a few other things. We noticed there's 14 days of short interest, average daily volume. We noticed that the biotech group was showing market leadership. So we were looking for leaders in the group, and a lot of times you can spot leadership, as Marielle was discussing, by the chart pattern itself. You can also see bullish demand down here as the stock rises out of the base. And it also had strong relative strength characteristics, which we look at very, very closely. Those tend to show you leaderships as well. Now, here's the stock at 31. So here it is when we identified it, and it became a big winner, up over 100% in 18 months. Now, notice we're looking at weekly charts, and that's very important to us. You know, Jesse Livermore, I'm sure many of you heard of him. He said, you know, it wasn't my thinking that made me the money, it was my sitting. Well, you just can't day trade up 100%. Well, I guess you could if you get in the right kind of trade. But more than likely, you'd have to sit on stocks for a while and maybe go through rebasing phases. And then finally, you need to know when to sell. And this is where we took it off our list right here. And it was a good winner for our clients. So we were fortunate on that one. The next example, Celgene. Again, biotechs were the leading group, so we kind of focused in on the leaders. Here it broke out of what's called a cup and handle base. It broke out. Actually, this volume looks light, but this was an inter-rate volume that we saw it emerging from this basing area, so we put it out to our clients in an alert. And you can see this stock advanced 125% in 22 months, split adjusted. It had the other key ingredients that Marilyn was talking about: leader, explosive growth. It had strong relative strength characteristics. It had everything that Marilyn was talking about. And here's Celgene at this point. So these are the stocks that we're interested in, the ones that go up a lot. And they all had, many of them had, very common characteristics that keep on repeating cycle after cycle, and that's part of our work. We look at the history, we look at the past winners, and they just keep repeating themselves over and over again, and they just did in this just recent cycle.
So we're going to share with you some insights as far as how you as an individual investor can spot these potentially big winning stocks. And the first item, of course, is screening the markets. You're looking for fundamentally sound companies. And I did mention sales and earnings as being a primary driver. And again, another reason that you want to see these higher earnings and sales growth companies, you want to invest in quality companies that are also going to attract the institutions. Again, remember, they're the guys driving these stock prices up and down on a regular basis. Screening the markets, I'm sure many of you are familiar. Yahoo Finance has a lot of the earnings and sales revenues in Google Finance. Many of you probably have your own sources as well. Secondly, Mike talked about this, is knowing technical analysis. And if you can familiarize yourself with technical analysis, these stocks will reveal themselves to you. We talked about relative strength hitting a new high. That's a technical item. We pay close attention to key moving averages. We want the trends to be upward. So knowing technical analysis and then pairing it with strong fundamentals, really very powerful. Some of the top award-winning money managers that Mike and I have worked with, they have found a way to marry the fundamentals that they're familiar with and marry it with a strong technical characteristics and a strong chart. Another way that you can spot these winners is really just staying up to date on the latest news and developments in the world. A lot of the new companies will present themselves to you that way. They're innovative, so they'll make the news. There's a lot of high demand for them. There's buzz. They're talked about. But really, you don't want to always buy the hype. You want to make sure that the buzz is accompanied by strong fundamentals. A lot of times you might hear of a stock idea from a well-meaning friend, but again, you want to make sure that the particular company has the strong fundamental metrics that you can marry with a strong chart, and that's really going to make the difference. So we've reviewed quite a bit here. In concluding, identifying winning stocks, it does take patience. It's taken Mike and I many years of study, and we're more than happy to share what we've learned. But within our studying, we've developed a system, again, those key characteristics, and it does take patience. A lot of people think they can just get in front of a computer and trade stocks, but having a system to help you weed out the winners from the so-so stocks is really going to be critical. I think Mike touched on this as far as taking profits. You do need to, for selling stocks, we tend to pay more attention to technicals. Oftentimes, a stock will start breaking down 2 to 4 quarters before the fundamentals start breaking down. So technicals on the sell side are really going to be important. And then we mentioned here, know yourself, because again, it will take time to learn a system and to really become adept at utilizing it. Use reliable software. There's some out there that is not going to have sound fundamental information, so you want to make sure that you are using software that you can count on. And if you find that you don't have a lot of time to put into learning a new system or really screening and weeding, we would say subscribe to a newsletter from a seasoned pro, and of course the action report would be a great example of that. But these guys are going to do the work for you. They're going to screen the markets. They know what to look for. So here's Mike.
So here's our special offer that we promised you. So we've gone into some detail here on what a winning stock is, but we'd like to offer you this special deal with, this is a video presentation of more in-depth, more in detail of all the things we're covering, with more examples and more, just a lot of information in this video. And then we're going to give you a 30-day free trial of our action report. Really a $297 value, but just to say thank you for listening in and being a part of this for only $19. Now remember, we have over 20 years of experience advising hedge fund managers and mutual fund managers. And also in this report, we'll be going into one key ingredient that's necessary. We'll be really focusing on that key ingredient. And we'll be providing you with marked up charts showing how to spot these stocks, plus all the other characteristics we're talking about. And this is all for $19. Now to access this, and we'll be taking questions soon, there's your access code right there, and I'm sure that you'll be provided with some sort of a thing where you can click on it and go right to it, and if you like. And then also, if you want to check out more information about us, go to markettrendsfinancial.com and get more information about our firm and us. So thank you very much for listening. So I guess we'll open it up for questioning. I guess we're having difficulty seeing any questions. Like we had audio difficulties to begin. So if there's, I apologize for that. Maybe you go to our website and email us or contact us through the website. Well, as we wait for these questions, again, our website is markettrendsfinancial.com. We publish the action report. And in this action report, we have buy candidates, short candidates, market direction. We cover the markets every which way, but every which way. So it's a credible deal, and our performance has been stellar. So on both sides of the market. So if you're interested in some of the stocks that we're talking about here, this is an ideal newsletter to get. And it's a free trial with the purchase of the $19 video.